Test, test. 1, 2.
Good. Come through.
Check, check. We don't hear you in here. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Testing.
Check 1, 2. Do you hear me? 1, 2, 1, 2.
I hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Oh no. 3 people work out there now. It's crazy in here. So we have, you should look and peek at the renovation. It's pretty extreme. So tax collector, receptionist, and park and rec are there. And then in boardroom B, we have building inspector, fire marshal, code secretary.
I'd like to call the December 11th, 2023 Board of Commissioners work session to order. Tonight, as always, we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have the honor of having Commissioner Similaro lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deanna, will you do the roll call?
Denise Hall, President. Here. Catherine Carter, Vice President. Here. Liz McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Martha Similaro, Commissioner. Here. Ruth Damsker, Commissioner.
Here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Nicholas Cross, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police. Here. Dan Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
And it is noted that Nathan Crittenden, Finance Director, is absent.
Thank you, Deanna. Lauren, were there any executive sessions?
There were. The board met in executive session earlier this evening to discuss matters of collective bargaining and potential litigation.
Thank you, Lauren. Next week, we will be celebrating Peg Poirier. Did I mispronounce her name? Poirier. Looks front says. Peg Poirier from our police staff. She has worked here for 20 years, so we're looking forward to that next week. Next week, we're also looking forward to the Power Line Trail presentation to give everyone an update on the current map. Next, we have the public comments. Please state your name and if you are a resident or non-resident when you come to the mic. Thank you for respecting the 5-minute rule and practicing decorum. Our goal is to always give you the most complete and correct answers to your questions from our staff, who are experts in each of their areas. For that reason, you have the option of enclosing your email address in the registry if you would like us to reach out to you during the week with a full answer to your questions. First up for public comment this evening is Tom Dunn.
That's the right place. Just make sure that the green light is on. Okay, good.
Good evening. My name is Tom Dunn, and my wife and I have owned and resided at 791 Hartley Drive for 37 years. That is within the township. I appreciate this opportunity to address you. I'm here today to express my concerns for a lack of progress and a lack of attentions to a code violation at a neighboring property of mine located at 791 Collins Avenue. The actions of my neighbors and the delay of the actions of the township has caused major damage to my property at considerable expense. Let me provide you with a brief context and a timeline of what has and has not occurred. My neighbor has considerably increased the impervious area of her property without any formal stormwater management. As a direct result, significant runoff has come onto my property and caused damage. Direct attempts to address the damage with my neighbor failed. Contacted the township to investigate what I now know to be direct violation of township ordinances. This was in May 2022, 20 months ago. In June 2022, I met with the assistant township manager excuse me, and a township engineer on site to express my concerns. August of 2020, the township engineer sent a letter to the township documenting his observations and recommendations based upon the open and existing permit that was issued by the township, as well as additional violations related to stormwater management. I was informed by a township employee that this would be addressed directly to my neighbor in writing. This was not done. Since that time, I have lost and have had to remove, at my expense, 7 arborvitaes and a large rhododendron that hadn't been on my property for decades. I had to replace them also at considerable cost. I have lost quiet enjoyment of my property that has taken me years to cultivate. In addition to that, I have had to deal with considerable ponding on my property, which has inhibited our ability to use my land. I also supplied the township with pictures which shows that my neighbor has installed a hose drain directly from their pool onto my property. It's more than just a stormwater management problem. As of today, the problem has gotten noticeably worse. Now, damage is being done to a property of my adjoining neighbor. I should add that as of today, this is still not in compliance with the township rules. In addition to what I have already lost, I have a mature hedgerow of approximately 60 foot in length, which has 37 years of care put into it, that is being flooded illegally and is in imminent danger of also being destroyed. This newfound breeding ground for mosquitoes and other insects is creating newfound headaches, as well as a health hazard. I've been told that a formal violation has finally been issued. I'm told I haven't seen it. A full 22 months after it was originally brought to the township's attention. That a meeting is attempted be arranged between the township, the engineer, and a contractor. Attempted to be arranged. I watched decades of ruined lives. I know that if you were in my shoes, you'd be asking that immediate action to take. I ask this board, Rex Chair, follow up with this up front. Stop.
Oh, it wasn't on. Okay. Tom, I'm very sorry. This sounds like a very frustrating situation. And it's very frustrating when there is an issue like you are having, and it's crystal clear in your mind what the solution is. In general, with our with the management of our code and the enforcement of our code, we work very hard not to be a police state. So we do give people the benefit of the doubt. We do have multiple conversations, multiple letters. We do take we do take a more relaxed pace than a lot of people would probably like or appreciate. The upside of that is that you don't have to feel like you have to look behind your shoulder and you have to have a perfect yard and follow every rule to a T as far as the code goes, as far as the violations that homeowners may incur on their property. So that's just I always start with that because that's just a general thing to know as to, because from your perspective, 22 months, what's going on, why the incompetence, it's so obvious, let's just fix it. But it's more complicated than that with our municipal management. I just wanted to start with that comment first before we talk about it. Megan did tell us a little bit about what was going on and filled us in a little bit. Megan, did you want to share the specific things that we have been doing to work towards this? Because I feel like our resident feels like we really haven't done anything, and his concerns have gone to.
Yes,
Ears.
so I do think that I did mention this to Mr. and Mrs. Dunn, but originally when this came to our attention, we did have myself and the township engineer go out. We treated it, since it was still an open permit, we do allow people enough time to close out that permit. So we were in correspondence with the homeowner to that property, letting them know you still have an open permit, and as part of that process, it gets approved by the engineer, but then the engineer also goes out to take a look at what needs to be done. Like if everything looks great, they'll say, okay, great, your permit's closed out. However, if there are remedial things that need to be done to the property, we'll let the property owner know you need to do this, this, and this to be able to close out the permit. We did instruct the contractor at that time what needed to be done.
And when did you do that? Did you need to wait
That
until
was-
the engineer had given the report? Because he said the report was submitted in August.
So the engineer did the report, but then the engineer also did the inspection for the grading permit as well, because they had an open grading permit for the additional deck that was put on, the patio area, but then also the burial of an underground sump pump. So that inspection was done, but the findings were then communicated to the contractor that had the open permit. We allowed a certain amount of time for them to correct that. Usually, when there's an open permit, we do allow a year for that permit to be closed out. But it got to a point where it's also in violation of the code. So an official letter, like violation letter, was issued. Typically, as you had mentioned, we do try to work with the property owner to, if they're receptive, and they're saying that they're going to make changes, we try to work with them. Like we'll extend the timeline a little bit like that. But it did reach to the point where we did issue a formal letter stating that if it's not remediated, there would be additional fines and citations issued.
Okay, and it wasn't remediated.
It has still not been remediated. We have been, Nick, I don't know if you want to speak to the site visit that you had the other day.
Yeah, Dan Quimby, the code official, and myself met with the resident at 791 Collins back, I think it was on Thursday of last week. And they did say that they would address the issues. They didn't really give us a timeline, but we can work. We plan to work with them to give them more immediate recommendations that might be able to, have some temporary, to solve the problem temporarily, at least to not have as much of a damage toward the hedges, toward the back of the property. And then, maybe over time we can have them address the issue more permanently with either a swale or an infiltration basin. But those details haven't worked out, but we are in communication with the homeowner and the contractor to get the problem solved.
I would just like to add, one of the reasons for the delay is not that we don't identify with the Dunn's problem, but our way of remediating a code issue is to fine a property owner. So if we send them to court and fine them, that money that they could have been spending to fix the issue and remediate it for the Dunn's is now going to like a court battle. And in my experience, it's just best to have that resident that needs to fix something invest that money in fixing it instead of going to court. That doesn't mean that we won't take people to court if they need to go. We do that too. But that is the reason for the large time that we allow, because we want to make sure, we're not tying them up with $1,000 fine in court. We're asking them to invest that to fix the issue.
And I do know that when we do have to get to the point where we do have to take residents to court, the judge will often give more time.
That's the other thing that happens too, yes.
They very much want it to be resolved amongst ourselves. They don't look at themselves as, okay, now I'm going to tell you exactly what to do and how to fix the problem. The judge is looking for a way that the resident can fix the problem with the township or with the other residents. And so therefore, it's sometimes 90 days they have to. So it makes sense that if they're refusing to do anything, we do have to find them. We do have to go through the legal channels. Again, slow process, right? Letter, phone call, time in
Violation
between
notice,
each of those. Try to go visit live, give a little more time, then give the citation, then get on the docket, then finally go to see the judge. And then the judge says, okay, in 90 days, come back and let me know how you fix this with your neighbor. So it's so frustrating for someone who is following all the rules, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and is the one who is the victim in that issue, who is experiencing all the hardship, as they would say, legally. It's very frustrating for them. And so I wish that we had a way. I wish we had a solution. I wish we could say to you, Tom, okay, well, we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and it's all going to be fixed. I don't know that that's going to happen. I know that we are going to try our best to keep having conversations with this neighbor, the neighbor's contractor, to keep working with them the best that we can, and that we will use the law if we need to. But like everything with government, it's a really slow process.
Is it typical for something like this to take 20? Is it typical for something like this to take 22 months? Is it typical for something like this to say, oh, we contacted them? Is it typical that when you say you contacted them in letter, that you have no record of that in your files? And then to come here, and you tell me, well, this is going to take 3, maybe 6 months. Well, I know what you're dealing with this individual.
We do have record of a letter.
Mr. Dunn is referencing, he did I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but a right to know request for the file. We don't, one of the exemptions to the right to know law is an investigation that's under investigation right now. So the letters that we've sent to Mr. Dunn's neighbor are protected by the right to know law.
Oh.
So they exist. I promise to you that we have sent the violation. Let me make sure. I promise that we have sent the violation notice.
Yes, one
But we
of them.
just
The other one,
On what date?
there's one in November. I don't know the exact date, but one in November. The other ones were
which
verbal
was in
conversations.
I'll
for-
help you out here. It was in August 2022, and that record is not on file.
But as I mentioned previously, that was to close out their open permits. So we didn't issue a violation notice for them to close out their permit.
Did you issue a letter?
We had verbal conversations. Typically, we'll call people to let them know. We do have like an auto letter that's generated once someone has an open permit for a year. Then the letter goes out letting them know you need to close out your permit, schedule an inspection. So
Have those letters been sent out?
yes,
So I can get a copy of those through the Right to Know Act.
But a lot of these records that you're describing are exempt under certain exceptions from the right to know law. So typically, if there's a question, it'll come to my office for review, whether or not they can be released. I don't know that we've reviewed this one.
I didn't have you review it because I know that
This
this
one's
one is exempt, but we can absolutely
straightforward.
send it to you.
No,
for-
this is pretty straightforward, but if there is a question, then they typically ask us to review it.
I think I understand. I think the way and I'm envisioning it from my standpoint. And you're all welcome to come out in your waders and march through my property to see what
sorry.
I'm putting up with.
I'm sorry this is happening.
It appears that because of the approach that's necessary to be taken, that I will lose my hedgerow in the back of my yard. I've already lost 7 arborvitaes and a rhododendron because of stormwater management not being adhered to.
Mr. Dunn,
I will continue to have damages because nothing is being done.
Behind our house because thrift.
And so I understand that things take time. This started for me, to bring it to anybody's attention, was 22 months ago.
Mhm.
To me, that's enough time.
I understand that
And a
perspective.
meeting is
I know why that feels like it's way
attempted
too
to
much
be
time.
set up, which has attempted to be done before.
Yeah.
But Mr. Dunn, you understand that we can't force someone to meet with us. Like I will give you my personal assurance that our township staff will do everything they can in the most timely manner that they can to continue to make your neighbor adhere to the laws that they need to follow.
And would
But
you please keep the board?
Sure, of course.
Any correspondence, we would like to know to stay on top of this.
Sure,
and we'll
yeah,
come up-
absolutely.
yeah.
And
But we will absolutely do that.
Is it
that
out of
doesn't-
line for me to tell you all, Sandra, that I'll be here next Monday night
No,
for an
come
update?
every meeting. We'll welcome you, but I don't want
Okay,
you to have
sure.
to do it. Yes, absolutely. There's no animosity between our staff and you, Mr. Dunn. We want to make this right for you. We just also have to figure out, we have to allow the other property owner their time to fix it as well, which
So-
I agree it's too long. It's
Is
not.
it unfair for me to ask for a timetable? for
No,
this
that is not
event?
unfair. We will get you that.
When can I expect that
You can
timetable?
expect a timetable from us. What day is it? Monday? By Friday of this
That would
week,
be
via
wonderful.
Email to you.
Thank you.
I can't guarantee that the timetable is going to be adhered to by other people, but we will give you our timetable of what we're doing and what we're looking to do.
Very good, thank you. Can I go home now? Brian, my
You
dear?
can stay if you
You
want.
can.
It's
I
very
mean,
exciting.
And Tom, if you would like, we can call you periodically and give you updates. I can give you my card
That'd
after
be
this.
fine.
And I have lots of residents that I give texts about what's going on with other residents' property and where they are, or I call them and we periodically meet and I talk about what's happening with the whole process, because it's a very long process.
Okay.
But I can do that. After the meeting, I'll make sure that we connect.
And you know what? I'm going to make another promise to you that I've made to another group of residents recently. Nick loves this because I make him give me the updates every week. But I have another group of residents that are concerned about a different issue. I send them an email every Friday to give them the update on what's happening. So we'll do that as well.
That'd be good. And I do want you to know that my issues, these particular issues, I've attempted to address but one of many. So you
Oh,
will be seeing
absolutely.
my pleasant face
We
again.
understand, we understand your frustration, and it is very slow, and government is very slow, and the process is very slow, and you are trying your best to be as patient as possible. We can tell, and we really appreciate that, and we appreciate you coming and speaking to us so civilly and trying to get this matter remedied in the most civil way possible, and we will help you do that.
Thank you.
And thank you for a little more patience. on top of that. Okay. Okay, we'll appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to make a public comment before I close this? Okay, I'm going to end the public comments, and I'm going to now turn the meeting over, because it's a work session, to our manager, Sandra Zadell.
Then I will instantly call up Mr. E. Van Rieker to give his report.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Looking at the agenda, the first two items are holdovers from last month. They are proposed land development plans, the Wawa at Valley Forge, and 212, actually the third item, are another land development, are items that have been reviewed by the Planning Commission, reviewed by the board, have been approved by the board, are now going through that tedious, let's get all of the details filed so that we can look at them and the solicitor and the engineer can sign off. So bullet 1 and bullet 3 are on their way to a building permit. 825 Morris Road is a pending 4-lot subdivision, single-family residential, approved by the Planning Commission. You've not seen it yet in final form, so they still have some issues to resolve. And I don't know whether that'll be in January or I don't think yet this month, so it will be perhaps at the earliest next month. Moving on to then 4 zoning hearing boards. You've heard me make the presentations. Stop me anytime if you have a question, but these are dimensional in nature. 1404 Sandy's Lane, 1923 2nd Street, right on the edge of the borough. 554 Woodford and 428 South Pennsylvania Avenue on the other end of the borough have all been approved, subject to testimony, subject to providing building permits for in 2 cases, it's an in-law suite, and in 2 cases, it's a detached garage. Questions on those? So, okay. Next are 3 new land developments that are making their way through the system. Merck Building 41 land development for a new vaccine building, a late research vaccine building. That will be on scheduled next week at the Planning Commission. 2003 Church Road redevelopment. That's now really we saw it as a sketch plan a few months ago. It's now a land development at next to it's actually next to the apartment complex on Church Road. They were before the zoning hearing. You might remember seeing this a number of months ago. They were approved with conditions. They have to meet those conditions, file a land development. That's in process. And then finally, a text amendment. Text amendment is different from a zoning map amendment because does not affect the map. It's a text only. It's a sort of an issue dealing with our C commercial district. I would be happy to go through it. We can do it again later when it comes before you. It's simply some wordsmithing to correct and update some definitions and details relative to how a convenience store with gas gets processed through Upper Gwynedd Township. We've had a number of these applications recently. They've happened at different times under different venues. We thought it would be timely to combine those processes into one new, more readily understandable text. So that's what we're working on. Maybe you'll see that in February. Are there questions from you or from anyone in the audience? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Van. Nick, would you like to give your engineer's report?
I would love to. So just an update on the annual road program. So the 2023 road program was closed out a few months ago, and plans and specifications are currently being drafted for the upcoming 2024 road program. List of roads and ramps are still being finalized based off of next year's budget. But the project is set to be publicly bid early in the new year and to start construction in the spring. And then since I typically don't have much to say at the business meeting, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday and a happy, healthy new year as well. So,
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, moving on to the administration section. Items 10 through 14 are good for the consent agenda. They're meeting minutes and the staff departmental reports. And President Hull, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to you for a couple of decision items, a couple important decision items.
Okay, and why is the first one important, Commissioner, or Manager Zadell?
Oh, okay. The first decision I'm asking you to make tonight is to approve the tax rate for 2024. There is no tax increase proposed, and it is the same tax rate that we've had previously. So this is our budget approval. These two actions. The first is for approving the tax rate, and the second is to approve the budget appropriations. And I did present that full budget in November, which has also been properly advertised and hanging, as we like to say. And my full budget presentation is also on our website, as well as the proposed budget.
Excellent. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2023-04, tax rate for 2024?
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2023-05, budget appropriations?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you. That's exciting. We put a lot of work into the budget, and I'm glad that the book is closed for this year. I know there's one more action you have to take to close the book fully. So that next action is the approval of supplemental budget appropriations. This is something we'll ask you to do next week. This is how we move additional funds into our capital fund. Luckily, each year we tend to have a surplus in Upper Gwynedd, and that comes from a lot of different reasons. Sometimes, in this case, a lot of the surplus has to do with timing of grants and large capital projects. So we will be able to increase our deposit into the capital reserve fund versus what we had initially anticipated. So that's the action we'll be asking you to take on item 17 next week. Are there any questions about that?
Yes. Just clarification, you're saying that you're getting more money back because the grants came in.
Actually, it's what we had anticipated in spending in the budget. A lot of the grant funded projects that we thought were going to maybe go to construction this year will be happening next year. But because of that, we didn't have to spend the capital funds. So we're going to redeposit what was budgeted as being spent. And then also we had stronger than expected revenue as well as reduced spending. So all of those three factors factor into why we have a surplus. And the supplemental budget appropriations are for this year's budget. So we're saying this year we expected, I'm sorry, my computer is not working, so I can't look at the exact numbers, but I think it was around $350,000 that we were planning to transfer to the capital reserve fund. Now we're looking to transfer $750,000. So we're putting more money into savings for future capital projects. Item 18 is approval of the Huff recycling contract. Huff and Associates prepares our recycling performance grant for us. So the DEP offers to municipalities that meet certain conditions a recycling performance grant. So what Huff does for us is they contact all of the trash haulers, make sure they understand how much recyclable material was recycled in Upper Gwynedd Township, and then we get certain grant credit for that we utilize each year. So this is something that's been going on my whole career in municipal government. Unfortunately, that grant funding source gets smaller each year, but we're still getting those grants, and Huff does a great job of managing that contract for us. So we'll be looking to renew with them for another 3 years. Any questions on that? Okay, next week we will also be asking for, it's hard to imagine, the first payment on our facilities upgrade project, which everyone probably noticed. Things are a little more squished in the building right now. While we do construction. So the first payment, you will be getting payment requests probably for the next 3 to 6 months for this project, but that will be a decision item for you next week. The architect and Willard and myself review all the payment applications. And Commissioner Hall, I'd like to turn it back over to you for a decision item on number 20.
Great.
Would you like me to give a little preamble?
Yeah, about why the air packs, we're doing them right now? Yes, please.
Okay, so the 63-month lease agreement with Canon, we're looking for a decision here. I think there's a typo on the agenda. It's not $1,623,000. It's $1,623.53. There's just a comma instead of a period, so that would look like a very expensive copier agreement, and I promise that's not what it is. This new 63-month lease agreement will save us approximately $2,000 over the life of the agreement, and what we've done is consolidated. We used to have very siloed agreements where each department had their own agreement. We've consolidated into one large agreement and been able to get some savings that way. So we are looking for a decision item on this item tonight so that we can move forward with that contract.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 63-month lease agreement with Canon Solutions America in the amount of, what was the amount, Sandra? You said
It's $1,623.53.
in the amount of $1,623.53 per month? There is a motion, and we have a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then moving on to the air packs.
Sure. So this item, we budgeted for air packs in 2023 and 2024. When our fire marshal went to purchase the air packs this year, he was told there's no way that we'll get them this year with the lead time. Well, they came in this month. So we did budget for this item this year and next year. Next year, we won't spend the money because we'll be able to spend it this year in getting the air packs this year. And as I mentioned, they were budgeted for and have not exceeded the budget line item. So
Great.
this new world of having no idea when we're going to get things that we order is a little tricky, but we're making it work.
It's nice when we benefit from that and they come quicker than we ever would have imagined.
Yes, that is good.
Is there a motion for the ratification of the purchase of 2 air packs to Duval Safety and Supplies in the amount of $19,272? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? Gianna, will you do the roll call?
President Hall,
Aye.
Vice President Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner McNaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Simularo,
Aye.
Commissioner Damsker.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So next up, we have an approval of a MERC waiver request. This will be for next week. It's a typical MERC waiver request looking for after-hours Sunday work on their antibiotic waste collection project. And then next week, it's hard to imagine that we're already thinking about the next 3 years of the carnival, but our carnival contract ended in 2023, so we will need a new contract in 2024. I reviewed the contract. There weren't any large price changes or significant changes. It's just pretty much a status quo contract update. Back to you, President Hull.
Did you want to talk about the sewer rate?
Sure, I would love to talk about it. So while I am not recommending a tax increase, as you saw at my budget presentation last month, we are recommending an increase, in the wastewater rate. So currently, what we're looking to do is increase the rate the residents pay by about $75, by $75 per EDU. So for a typical homeowner, that's $75 a year. We have had a lot of new projects started at the plant, as well as capital upgrades that have been sort of delayed through time. And at that November meeting, I went through probably 12 to 15 slides of capital upgrades that we have projected over the next few years. It's about $3.2 million of capital upgrades over the next 3 years alone. So we do need a new funding source to be able to provide those upgrades at the plant. They are all aimed at efficiency and more automatic operations. So they also have the added benefit of reducing staff overtime and in some cases reducing chemical and sludge hauling costs. But before we experience those efficiencies that we will gain in the future from these projects, we do need some funding to be able to complete them. So that is the reason for the proposed increase. It's mainly, we've really brought down the reserves in that fund with the WIP project. That was a $23 million project, and then having to make additional capital upgrades at the plant. So it's time for an increase, unfortunately. We did compare our wastewater rates to our surrounding communities, and we are still the second lowest rate of the comparable communities, and we will continue to be so in that same second lowest rate, even with the $75 annual increase. So I don't want anyone to think that we take it lightly to make a recommendation of the increase, but it is something that's important for us to be able to maintain like a high-class, efficient, not easy to operate. I don't think wastewater operations are ever easy to operate, but a more automated operation.
Great. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2023-06, increasing the sewer rates for 2024? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments?
Yeah, I think it's important to point out with if residents want to know more about this, what Sandra was just saying. Megan, can you click it on for us? It's all right here, and it really lays out a nice explanation of what Sandra just said too, on why we are in need of this increase of 75. So thank you for this, for that memo. It's very well written, explains it.
That was Nate's memo, so good job, Nate. But also in the budget documents that we have posted online, residents can also see in detail all of those capital projects that we have proposed.
Great. Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Back to you. Sorry, back to you.
I was just looking out into the crowd. So next up, we are looking for approval. My mic wasn't on. I can't believe I didn't get in trouble from the IT crowd. Item number 25 is an approval of a quote for advanced rehab technology to begin the manhole lining and chimney seals proposed for 2024. But in order to get on their schedule, we need to approve the quote. And that is the same for the utility service group for the cleaning and televising of sewer mains and laterals. And I have to make a wonderful announcement. We had a ton of rain last night. We had a ton of really quick rain, which has for the past 2 to 3 years really plagued our wastewater department. I want to give credit to the team there, Dan Ferris, our director, and his right-hand man, John Cosentino, and Bob Hegedus, who handles the I&I work. We are now able to control very efficiently a high flow scenario. Last night, Dan was incredibly proud of the staff and really excited. We've spent a lot of money the last year, this year, and next year on I&I remediation. That is becoming something that is making an impact. So sometimes it feels like with I&I, we can pour a million inflow and infiltration.
And why is that important?
So that is when clean groundwater or rainwater enters our sewer systems. We don't want to have to treat it. We want to be able to have that stay separate from our sewer system. And in order to do that, we have to do things like replace manhole linings and chimney seals and clean and televise our sewer mains to see if roots are impeding what's happening there. So because we've been so aggressive, the flow wasn't as aggressive last night at the plant. And we've also, I really think I have to give credit fully to Dan Ferris, our wastewater director. He has tons of experience and knowledge and has made a lot of changes for high flow. And the staff have been amazing. All of our staff at the wastewater treatment plant, every single one of them chip in when we get a high flow event, and they do a great job. So we're excited. I'm very excited when I get a text from Dan in his many, many words of Dan Ferris. Let's see. Lots of rain, no SSOs. So that's the good news.
Perfect.
Yes.
A man of few words.
Yes, he's a man of many, many words, especially via text or email. But I do have to say that the rate increase that you just approved, the capital projects, they not only make our process more efficient, but they also protect the environment. So that's something that I think is important to all of us, and I know is especially important to our wastewater team.
Absolutely. Thank you. Woohoo!
It's still me. So those are the two decision items for Martha's section next week, and then there will be the open and paid invoices. And now, President Hull, I'd like to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Sandra. Do any board members have anything else to share this evening? All right. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us. Meeting is adjourned.